Hello everybody, this is Conquering History Games, and it is time for another guide to a nation in the world of Kaiserreich. Today, the nation that has been chosen by my Patreons is going to be the nation of New England in Kaiserreich. So actually, a really quick disclaimer, technically South Africa won the poll with my Patreon voters, but since there is going to be an Africa rework that's going to be coming within the next month or so, I don't want to make a South African guide that could quickly find itself out of date. So just in case there's any new interactions with Middle Africa and things like that, I don't want to work on any countries in Africa until then. Now, New England got second place, so I am going to be doing it. And don't worry, the South Africa National Guide will be coming just after we hit patch 0.5. Anyway, so to become New England, well, what are we talking about when we're talking about New England? Well, we're talking about this area here in the Northeast United States. But if you want to become New England, you actually do not start as the United States. You have to start as Canada. Why is that? That's a little strange, right? Well, I'm going to go ahead and explain it right here. So first, we need to let some time go by. In early 1937, or sometimes in late 1936, the United States Civil War should break out. It almost always will, because they haven't watched my video on how to avoid it. So, you will get this event saying the occupation of New England. As you can see, New England here is separated from the rest of the United States by the combined syndicates of the United States. Not only that, but the in-game text tells us that New England is not radical enough to join the syndicates, but they're too moderate to be part of the American Union state, so they just feel isolated and alone. So, you as Canada are given the chance to seize New England. There is a chance that the United States will fight you for it. Doesn't happen very often, and if they do, well, they just screwed up big time because you could easily take them down. If you do that, however, I would recommend not going into any non-aggression pacts with the CSA or the AUS, because that could slow down your plans of conquest if you go after them. But that's not what this is about. This is not a Canada guide. That is a different video. Let's talk about New England. About a month or so after you take New England, you are going to get the option to either continue to occupy it militarily or to grant them independence. And this third option here is where you grant them independence, but you actually play as New England. This is the one that you want to take. You're going to do the tag switchover, and the nation of New England is created. So we're just going to let a little bit of time go by here just because you're going to get various pop-ups. Okay, so you see you're going to get the state of New England, where you will join the Entente. You cannot do anything about it. You are locked in. You may or may not get this. So, right now you are run by the Social Conservatives under Percival Baxter. You are a member of the Entente. However, you can just leave anytime you like. It's not a big deal if you don't want to do that. Although it's not the worst thing in the world to have the big bad Canadians to your north protecting you. Now let's take a look at your situation at the start here. You've got 3 research slots, so that's not too good. However, as you'll see, it's easier to get some more later. You got only 1 military factory and 2 naval dockyards. Of course, this could be subject to change depending on if, when you were playing as the United States, you decided to develop New England. On that note, let's go to the construction tab here. As you see, you have 80% infrastructure here, 70% there. Now, I know some people, I'm one of them, like to develop their infrastructure so they can build factories faster, and I'm not a big fan of doing it via national focuses. However, I would like to point out here that you do have this focus, New Haven Railroad, which puts 3 more infrastructure in each of these areas, so putting you at really over 100% on each of them. So you probably do not want to build any infrastructure yourself and just immediately go towards making factories or forts or whatever the hell you want to do. You have a very minuscule army, just some National Guardsmen, really. Oh, this is just a New England Minutemen event. This doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Okay, what else was I saying? Oh yeah, so you've only got the 1 factory, which is unfortunate. But now let's go ahead and take a look at that focus tree I was talking about. We're not going to talk about this part right now. I'm going to get to that later. So you have over here the economic branch of your focus tree, which is probably the one that you're going to want to start going down initially for a couple of reasons. For one, you get the infrastructure focus right here, and then these just help you with your resources, because as New England, you do not exactly have a lot of resources. If we look here at the actual resource map mode, all you've got to your name is some steel. So I guess you can make guns, and that's about it. But via this national focus, you can get some aluminum too. So I guess for planes, but what about oil and rubber? So you got a lot of problems. I guess you can make support equipment. All right, down here, sciences. This is where you work on your industry. You get a research slot here, and a 3% research bonus here as well, because you're supported by the Ivy League. You know, get Harvard to get those Harvard brainiacs and put them to good use, right? Atlantic trade is an interesting one. You could pay less production to create trade convoys, so it's kind of similar to the national spirit that the Pacific states of America can also get, but you also get minus 10% consumer good factories, which is very good, although you do not have very many. So kind of think of it like when you're playing as Hawaii, how much does it really help to reduce your amount of consumer good factories when you do not have that many factories at all? So you could be working really hard just to get one extra factory. All right, you have your land doctrine tree, which is split into two areas that you could basically go down. You could either go for superior firepower or grand battle plan doctrine. But really, you're not 100% locked into either of those. They are only giving you one research bonus. It's up to you to decide if it's worth it or not. These are a little bit mislabeled, actually, these pictures. So the infantry tank gives you a light tank model, which when I think of infantry tanks, I think of like a heavy tank that they could, huddle around, a World War I style. But I suppose that's just quibble. But over here, cruiser tanks, you have the horsemen here, and this gives you a research bonus for your heavy tanks. But more importantly, this is for if you're somebody who wants to make if you decide you want to make a lot of tank divisions, you get the national spirit, which gives you more attack and defense and reliability and speed. So very, very good focus right here. Only available, of course, if you take the combined arms. Over here, flexible fire control, even though it has a tank on its image, is for your infantry, weapons, and support. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is just something that has slipped their mind, but I feel like this was supposed to be mobile warfare, and maybe this was supposed to be superior firepower or something. Oh yeah, and you also get the Joint Chiefs thing, so it gives you max planning, speed, and stuff like that. So I guess that does work with the Grand Battle Plan stuff, but you guys get what I'm saying. You can also get radio really quickly. And the new officers, you do not get that recon company bonus that so many of the other American land focus trees get. So it's just a land doctrine bonus over here. And of course, you have your naval tree. Pretty standard stuff here. You can go with subs or you can go with destroyers. Nothing really amazing here. Okay, the Air Force, again, pretty standard. Do you want battlefield support or do you want strategic destruction? So if you want to do the operational integrity, maybe New England's not for you. But it's all just pretty basic. Although you do get jets and rockets down here. Okay, and then your policy in the Entente, again, nothing really interesting here, although you can get ties with the Pacific states, but I mean, they're probably going to be in the Entente anyway, so doesn't seem any point to ever taking this focus. The Underground Railroad is interesting, though. This is an event that it's more for flavor than anything, but you basically can establish a way for refugees who are running away from the Second American Civil War to pass through New England on their way up to Canada or to stop in New England. So it's a way to increase your manpower pool, but it's honestly, it has very little effect. But it's cool as far as flavor goes. The Irish focuses here are also interesting because you can eventually get this national spirit, New England Irish trade, so you get another minus 5% on your consumer goods factories, but also a 0.15 reduced cost on your daily political power. So that's very nice. This is these three are just you getting more research from Canada. Now, this is the stuff for if you want to start taking back the rest of the United States. You can get a core on New York City and then also on New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I don't really know why it can't just be one focus or something like that, but by coring them, you do get more population. But once you've done the New York City one, you have the quasi bell to attack these other countries. And remember, because it is on New York City, because the city itself went with the syndicalist. Up here is upstate New York, as it says right there. Okay, is there anything I'm forgetting? No, I do not think so. So we are going to go forward now a little bit in time, so then I can talk about this tree. Okay, now what we were looking at here is after you've gone down most of this tree and gotten to the New England Constitution, which gives you your first presidential election. The stuff here is just political in nature. You're getting a lot of political power, but you're also getting some interesting national spirits here. For example, you get the Puritan work ethic, so you get a little more production efficiency and factory output, and you get New England towns, which lets you build infrastructure faster. Although, like I was saying before, you have a focus that's going to take you to 100% on your infrastructure anyway, so that doesn't really matter, but what does matter is you're getting an additional 10% political power. And as you see there, it's not a 0.10, it's a 10% overall increase, so very nice. So what's going to happen is you then have your first presidential election, and if you actually look over here at your ministers, a couple of them are running for office. So you've got here Joseph Kennedy, which I already have the video about him out already. It's just a little 3-minute thing. So today let's take a look at William Harriman. He's one of the people you could potentially pick. And there will be recurring elections every 4 years, but after the third one they just stop. Now, I would argue... Oh, well, let me talk about Harriman here real quick, because there's not much to New England, so now I'm going to talk about people for a little while. This is an interesting guy. He worked for President Truman. He's considered one of the wise men of the mid-20th century as far as U.S. politics were concerned, you know, helping make policy and things like that. So he was a governor of New York, so that's why he's here in New England, because the capital of New York is not New York City, it's up here. So... he's kind of an interesting one. Another interesting character is, as I've already said, you have... Wait, where is he? Here we go. You have Joseph Kennedy Sr. So this is the person who, in Kaiserreich, went over to Canada and said, we totally would not mind you occupying us if something really bad happens in the United States. And I think it's kind of funny that he's considered a political protege, so he has the same effect that Winston Roosevelt does in the United States. So his father was Patrick, and they ran like alcohol distributing companies. They made their fortunes off of crime, as so many fortunes are made, as the saying goes, behind every great fortune is a great crime. So his son was Joseph Kennedy Jr., who is actually potentially your Chief of Air Force. He died in the original timeline during World War II. He was working on this operation. You see, they used to do this thing in World War II. I guess you could say at the first call them the first experiments with drones, where they would take these flying fortresses and load them up with explosives, and then via radio pilot them into areas. But they still needed a skeleton crew to fly them. So Joseph Kennedy Jr. was on one of these, and the explosion went off early before him and his partner could parachute out of the plane. So that's how he died, and then that's how JFK, his little brother, the next eldest son in the Kennedy family, would become president one day. But something I think would be interesting, if you're listening, developers, is that maybe if Joseph Kennedy survives, maybe you can incorporate an event where he dies if you want, but like in an air fight. But if he lives, he would be eligible to run for president under the original United States Constitution in 1950, which is pretty late in the game. But I mean, some people, you can play it into the 60s, really. So just a suggestion. Another person of interest is, where is he? This is the last one I'll do. Is here, Prescott Bush. So Bush, as I'm sure you can already figure out, is related to the Bushes who have been the president of the United States. But there's a little more to it than that. Okay, so Prescott Bush, his son was George H.W. Bush. This is because they lived in Connecticut. And he was president in the early 90s. He was Reagan's vice president and stuff. Now, he had two sons. One was George W. Bush, who, as we all know, became president of the United States as well. In 2000, he was elected. He also had another son, Jeb Bush, who would be the governor of Florida and ran for president recently in 2016. Didn't go well. He's not in the White House now, so I don't think it went too well for him. Anyway, Jeb Bush has a son named George Prescott. So he named it after his brother, named him after his brother, and after his grandfather. George Prescott Bush did the Pledge of Allegiance at one of the Republican National Conventions, I think in '88. And he is also partly Hispanic via his mother. So George Prescott Bush, the one that's born in 1976, is actually holding office today in Texas. He is the commissioner of the Texas General Land Office. And if you're wondering what the heck they do, yeah, exactly. That's kind of half the point. So the interesting thing about George P. Bush is that he won that office by running against the person who was the mayor of my hometown, which is El Paso, which is not worth being a city in Hearts of Iron 4. But I just thought that was kind of interesting, the kind of the Bush connection. So like Prescott Bush in the original timeline, his family, they started in Connecticut. Two of them have become president. One was governor of Florida. Another was governor of Texas. And they're already setting up George P. Bush to one day, continue on these traditions of being politics. So to my European viewers, while the United States does not have noble titles, we definitely do still have nobility out here. So besides that, there's really not anything more to New England. I mean, you get this effect here where you can get more recruitable population and a big 250 political power here. But besides that, you're just this little minor nation with admittedly a whole lot of building slots, as we can see here. I haven't researched any industrial stuff, so once you start researching more industry, you can really pack it in here. So you can try to reunite the United States, I suppose. In fact, let me show you what it looks like when you do that. So this is a world where New England retook the United States, and there is no effect at all that happens when you do this. Unlike when you play as the Pacific States of America, where you still get that recovering from the American Civil War national spirit, and then you get that weird thing where you can release it and become the United States. In this situation, the United States and all the offshoot countries of it are just like any other area of the globe. So what I'm saying is, as New England, you're going to be a member of the Entente. If you're going to be using their power, I mean, use their power. Help them fight their wars, and maybe you can go pick off some other things. You could just do whatever you want with it. Why don't you go make a colony somewhere? Like, go like attack South Africa and make New England or something. Have some fun with it. You and Harriman here. So, thanks for joining me on today's National Guide in the World of Kaiserreich. Remember, if you are a Patreon, you get to vote on which ones come out each week. And even if you don't become a Patreon, I do thank you for supporting the channel. Comment below any ways that you feel I can improve guides in the future. And be sure to subscribe and click the little bell so you're always notified whenever a new video comes out on the channel. I've been Conquering History Games, and you have a wonderful day.